Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today we'll not be discussing the regular Bhagavatam class. Today is Bhishmashtami. So normally in Gaudiya Vaishnavism we don't celebrate Bhishmashtami, but uh, Guru Maharaj has given several classes on Bhishmashtami. So we thought we will discuss the glories of Bhishmadev today. So as we know, Bhishmadev is one of the 12 Mahajanas, and if we see his life, there are several. It's very eventful life, so to say. So Bhishmadev's life is very eventful. There are several events that happened, and in each of these events, he has established himself as someone who is an authority on dharma. But at the same time, there are some instances also which we read in Mahabharata where Bhishma actually did not act properly, so to speak, or in line with dharmic principles. So we'll also try to understand why he did that and how that transpired. So Bhishmashtami is not the appearance day of Bhishmadev, it's the disappearance of Bhishmadev. And his disappearance is glorious, as mentioned in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 9th chapter. And that's the only chapter where we kind of discuss about Bhishmadev in detail. In rest of the places of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhishmadev's glories are actually not mentioned. So that's the only one single chapter, and it's talking specifically about his disappearance. So that gives an indication that Bhishmashtami is actually, or his disappearance is actually a very auspicious and glorious for all of us to understand and meditate on the prayers that he prayed to the Lord, and also we'll also get a glimpse of his internal mood with respect to his devotion to Krishna, and how he glorified Lord Krishna and how he pleased Lord Krishna. So we'll also see some verses from this 9th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam today. So the story, how it starts, this is actually mentioned in the Adi Parva of Mahabharata. So in the initial phase, Janmejaya is listening to, or he inquires from Vyasdev after his snake sacrifice is complete. I hope there is some background understanding you all have about this. Actually what happened was Maharaj Parikshit was bitten by a snake, and then Janmejaya, he gets agitated and he conducts a Sarpasatra, or a snake sacrifice, in which all the snakes of this world have to die. And why some of the snakes died and some of the snakes escaped, it's actually a part of an elaborate description in the Adi Parva of Mahabharata. We'll not be getting into that. So after this snake sacrifice is stopped by a rishi called Astika, then Janmejaya wanted to really understand how glorious his ancestors were, the Pandavas, his great grandfathers, and so on, and how Lord Krishna was favorable towards them and why he was favorable towards them, and so on. So when he puts this inquiry to Vyasdev, then Vyasdev asks his disciple Vaishampayan to narrate the story, and Vaishampayan starts from the explanation of Surya Vamsha and Chandra Vamsha. So this entire Mahabharata, this line is an explanation of the Chandra Vamsha. So there are two lines, there are two prominent Kshatriya lines that came in this world. There is this Surya Vamsha, in which Lord Ramchandra appeared. That's also called Raghuvamsha or Ikshvaku Vamsha. And then this Chandra Vamsha, the prominent personality there was Yayati, and then he had his 5 children, Yadu, Puru, and so on. Yadu, Puru, Drukyu, Turvasu, and so on. So he had 5 children, and from that the entire lineage of Chandra Vamsha spread in this world. And the same line appeared the king called as Pratipa. So what happened was, there was a king called Mahabhisha, and he was in Ikshvaku line, and he had performed hundreds of Ashwamedha Yagyas, and or rather thousands of Ashwamedha Yagyas and hundreds of Rajasuya Yagya. So a very pious personality. So he was elevated to the heavenly planets, and he was very prominent there. So once what happened, he was in Lord Brahma's court, and discussions were going on, some programs were going on. So he was there, and other demigods were also there, and along with that, Ganga Devi, Mother Ganga, was also there. So what happened was, in that court, suddenly a sudden gush of wind blew, and Ganga's upper cloth, it kind of flew. So all the demigods, out of respect for Ganga, they lowered their sight, they lowered their head. But Mahabhisha was attracted to Ganga, and Ganga also did not seem to mind this activity. So Lord Brahma observed that, and he said, because you both are influenced by Kama, and this place is not for Kama, Krodha, Lobha, all these things cannot manifest here. So therefore, you both have to take birth in the Bhuloka. You have to go to the earth. You have to go to Bhuloka, basically, this planetary system, because this is where lust is prominent. So this is where lust is prominent, and you have to take birth here. So, so this is done, and then Mahabhisha, but then Lord Brahma also gives Mahabhisha a choice. Like, you can choose in which family you want to take birth. They're a very pious personality. So I'll give you that option. And Ganga also, she accepted Lord Brahma's order, and they both moved from that place. So Mahabhisha, he thought, who is the most prominent king in earth now? I would like to take birth in his dynasty. So Maharaj Pratipa was there at that time. So then he decided that I will be the son of Maharaj Pratipa. And Ganga Devi also went from there. And on her way, then she met the 8 Vasus, who were actually not in a very good state, or she can observe that they are in a very distressful condition. So she asked them what happened. So they said, we have been cursed by Vasishtha because of our deeds, actually. So when Ganga asks more about that, then they tell that there is, of the 8 Vasus. 8 Vasus are basically the 8 demigods who control the elements. So there is this ether, there's earth, there's water, fire. And so these 8 Vasus basically control these different elements. So one of these Vasus was named Dhyau, and Dhyau means ether, or Dhyau means sky. So he had a wife, and this wife actually saw the Kamadhenu, or the cow of Vasishtha. So Vasishtha had this Kamadhenu cow. Now we know the story of Vasishtha and Vishwamitra. So Vishwamitra tried to steal Vasishtha's cow because she could fulfill all the desires. Anything that you want from the cow, she'll give. So Vasishtha had this cow, and Dhyau's wife wanted to take that cow and gift it to her friend. So Dhyau said that it is Vasishtha's cow, we cannot do like this. But because he was attached to his wife, so, and due to wife's pestering, so to speak, he agreed. And all the other 7 Vasus also, they supported in this task of stealing the cow from Vasishtha's ashram. So they did that, and the cow was missing. So when Vasishtha came back, the cow was missing, and through his meditation, he could understand what has actually happened. So he cursed the Vasus to take birth in earth, in Bhuloka. So when the Vasus got to know about this, then they felt repentful, and they tried to pacify Vasishtha. So Vasishtha modified the curse a little bit. So he said that of you 8, 7 of you, because you had no direct fault of yours, therefore you will take birth, and within 1 year you will come back. So for you there's no issue. But because this Dhyau was so attached to his wife, he will have to undergo the entire long life in Bhuloka, and then because of his attachment to his wife, in this life he will not have any female association at all. He will not have any children, he will not get married, no female association for him. That is the curse. So they all agreed, and then they are basically narrating this story to Ganga, and they requested Mother Ganga. So we also heard that you are also going to Bhuloka only. So we do not want to take birth in any mother's womb, in any mundane mother's womb. you are divine, so you please give us birth from your womb, and then that way we will be uh, honored in that way. So Ganga accepts that. And from that point, then she moves around and then she comes to Maharaj Pratipa. So she mistakenly thinks that Maharaj Pratipa is that Mahabhisha. So, and Maharaj Pratipa here was actually doing tapasya, he was doing meditation to get a son. But he was alone at this time. So, Ganga Devi, to impress, to request Maharaj Pratipa to accept her as his wife, she comes and sits on the right thigh of Maharaj Pratipa. And then she expresses that she wants to marry him and she wants to produce children from him. So Maharaj Pratipa, he understands and he says, see, according to Dharma, when the daughter only sits, daughter or daughter-in-law only sits on the right thigh of the father, and because you have sat on my right thigh, I cannot accept you as my wife, but I can accept you as my daughter-in-law. That's thing we see also when deities are there, and even when husband wife move around, the wife is always on the left side, Radharani is on the left, Krishna is here. So no, it's not the right side that one should sit on. That's for the daughter or daughter-in-law. Left side is for the consort. Maharaj Pratipa says this is how it is. So, and that time Ganga tells Maharaj Pratip that okay, fine, I agree to this point, but then you should tell your son that I'll get married to him only when he does not inquire about me, who I am, from where I have come, what is my purpose, and so on. If he does not inquire all these things, then only I'll get married to him. Maharaj Pratipa then says, okay, fine, that's how it shall be. And after that, Maharaj Pratipa again continues his tapasya, this time along with his wife, and then a son is born to him. So that's Shantanu. And this is the same Mahabhisha who is born as the son of Maharaj Pratip as Shantanu. And then Maharaj Pratip, after some time, after installing, then Shantanu grows up, of course. And then Maharaj Pratipa, after installing Shantanu as the king of the entire world, then he retires to the forest. And before retiring to the forest, Pratipa tells Maharaj Shantanu that you will be approached by a girl and you will also be attracted towards her. But then you should not be asking her identity. You should not be asking who she is, what is her purpose, which family she belongs to, and so on. But then you should get married to you. So this is how it's settled. So Maharaj Shantanu, at that time itself, he should have got a question like this, so mysterious, but then he did not. So he accepted. Okay, fine, chalo. So this is how it's going to be. Then Maharaj Pratipa retires to the forest, and Shantanu, then he becomes the king, and he was so powerful. Of course, he was such a pious personality. He was so powerful. He did lots of sacrifices. He expanded his kingdom. The entire world was under his control. There were so many subordinates king who were giving him lots of taxes and so on. So once, so this is the story of Hastinapur. So all these kings, Maharaj Pratipa and Shantanu and so on, they are all in Hastinapur. That's present day Delhi, in and around present day Delhi. So Ganga used to flow near that place, and Maharaj Shantanu was roaming around the river bank of Ganga, where he met actually Mother Ganga, and then obviously he was attracted towards her. That's there from the previous life, so he was attracted towards her, and Ganga also understood that this is the person to whom I should get married to. So then he expresses his proposal, and Ganga again, she reiterates that you should not ask me who I am, where I have come from, what's my family lineage, and so on, and whatever activity I do, you should not be questioning me. And because Maharaj Shantanu was completely besotted by her beauty, so he agreed to everything. There also he should have got indication that something is mysterious, but that's how it was. So Maharaj Shantanu then got married to Ganga, and then over a period of time, children were born. So first child was born, and as soon as it was born, Ganga was very happy, Shantanu was very happy, it was a son. But Ganga took that son and put him into Ganga. Right? So Maharaj Shantanu was horrified by this act, but then because he has promised her that if he asks anything, she will leave at that time. That was the condition actually. So he should not ask Ganga about anything about her, and if he asks, that moment she will leave him. And because Maharaj Shantanu was very attached to Ganga, so he did not ask. But although he was very horrified, but then he restrained himself from asking this question. So like this, first child, second child, third child, 7 children were thrown into Ganga like this. So when the 8th child appeared and Ganga actually took him to put into the river, then Maharaj Shantanu, he stopped. He stopped and he asked, why are you doing this? Why are you being so cruel to the children? It is said that mother is the most affectionate towards children, but here we see that the children are born, and as soon as they are born, you are not even giving them milk, and they are just throwing them into river, and you are killing them. How can a woman be so cruel like this? So that time Ganga, then she explains that this is what has happened previously. These are actually not ordinary children, but these are the Vasus who have been cursed, and it's their request only. So they will stay here only for 1 year, which means for the period of gestation when she is carrying them within her womb, and then after that she will kill them. But this eighth child is Dhyav, and he is supposed to live. So therefore, it's by right time, by Paramatma's inspiration, that you have asked me to stop. So therefore, this child I will not kill, and this child is supposed to continue living, and this is how his life is. But she did not tell him that this boy will not get married and so on. Okay, just to save Maharaj Shantanu some tension, she did not say all that, although she knew. And it's also mentioned in Mahabharata that the Vasus actually they gave 1/8 of their potency to Dhyav. So when he came to this world, it's not that Dhyav directly appeared, but each of the other 7 Vasus they gave 1/8 of their Shakti, of their potency to this particular child. So when he was born, Bhishma already had the potency of the different Vasus also. So he was very powerful in that way. So after saying all this, Ganga then disappeared with this child. So this child is Devvrat, or whom we know as Bhishma. So she disappeared with the child then and there itself, and she took him, and then Maharaj Shantanu, he continued ruling for 36 years. So in these 36 years, he had no wife. So there was no question of sense gratification or anything. So this time he engaged himself completely in doing good for his citizens and doing lots of tapasya and so on. So he developed such a pious merit for himself in these 36 years. And in these 36 years, Ganga also took this child, whom she named as Devvrat. He's also called as Ganga Datta. So there are different names of Bhishma. This Ganga Datta. He's also called as Gauranga. Bhishma was also called Gauranga. He was called Ganga Datta. Then he was also called Devvrat. So Devvrat was the prominent name at that time. So she took him to Vasishtha, and Vasishtha became his guru. So it's ironical that he was the one who actually cursed Dhyav, and then he is born as Devvrat. But then Devvrat was actually trained in all this Dharma Shastra and so on completely. His complete education was actually done by Vasishtha, and his education on weapons, on Astra, the Astra Vidya, Shastra Vidya, was done by Parshuram. So these were his 2 prominent gurus. So he was trained in that way. And then Maharaj Shantanu, in all these 36 years, he was completely engaged in his Rajasic activities and in lots of tapasya and so on. So once he was again roaming around near the banks of Ganga. So there he saw that the flow of Ganga has actually been stopped. And this was very astonishing to him, because Ganga's flow is so difficult, or rather it's impossible to stop. She's so swift. And even now also she flows very swiftly. So it's very difficult, it's impossible to stop, but he was astonished that someone has been able to stop the flow of Ganga. So he saw that there was one boy who actually threw the arrows which he shot, basically created a kind of a dam on this entire width of Ganga itself, using only his arrows. And he was astonished. But because Bhishma has been trained in the heavenly regions, because Ganga took him to heavenly regions, this is where Vasishtha trained him, this is where Parshuram trained him. So he was able to do some illusion, and then he disappeared in front of Maharaj Shantanu directly. So Maharaj Shantanu was completely astonished, and then he invoked Ganga. Then he requested Ganga to appear. So Ganga Devi appeared, and then she told, and then he asked, like, who is this personality who is able to actually stop your flow? So she said, this is your son only. This is Devvrat, who has been trained by Vasishtha, who has been trained by Parshuram, and now he has completed his training, and he has come here to join you in doing the administrative work. So he'll be with you from this time onwards. And Devvrat was then given to Maharaj Shantanu, and then from that time Ganga disappeared. So Ganga also, before disappearing, when like initially when she was about to kill the eighth child, at that time itself she told that whenever you have any doubts or questions, or whenever you want to meet me, you can meet me, but I will not stay with you. I'll not stay with you. You'll be able to have my audience, but I'll not be able to stay with you. So this we will see in throughout Mahabharata also, that Maharaj Shantanu will every now and then will have discussions with Ganga, and Bhishma also. He also discusses with Ganga, with his mother, but she will not stay in Hastinapur. So Devrat then came to Hastinapur, and then to have such a glorious son, Maharaj Shantanu was extremely pleased that such a glorious son has come, and without wasting any time, he installed him as the prince, as the next king in line. So this happened, and after that, then Maharaj Shantanu was going for hunting, and at that time he meets Satyavati. So Satyavati, there's a parallel story that goes of Satyavati also. So Satyavati is actually the biological daughter of Uparichara Vasu. So he was the king of the Chedi kingdom. So there's a story for that also, that how Satyavati was born, and there was also brother of Satyavati who was the initiate of the Matsya kingdom. So this Matsya kingdom comes at the later part of Mahabharata, where the Pandavas, after the 12 years of forest life, the 13th year they spend in the kingdom of Virat. So that's also called Virata Parva. So this Virat actually comes in the line of Matsya king. So this Matsya king, the originator of this Matsya kingdom, this Matsya line, actually is the brother of Satyavati. So Satyavati, she was actually brought up by a fisherman, and because of that, and she was actually born from the belly of a fish. We will not be going into the details of this story, but she was born from the belly of a fish. So from her body, the smell of a fish always used to come. So she was called Matsya Gandha. And because she was the daughter of a fisherman, her service or her duty was to take travelers from one side of the bank of Yamuna to the other side. So she used to ply like this. So once Parashar Rishi came there, and he wanted to go from this bank to the other bank, and Satyavati was taking him there. But in between, Parashar Rishi observed that there's a very auspicious sign of a birth of a great personality. So he asked Satyavati. Satyavati was the only woman there. So he asked Satyavati that you please cohabit with me, so that this auspicious moment is not wasted and this glorious personality appears in this world. So at that time, Satyavati, because Parashar Muni was a great rishi, Satyavati could not say no to him, and then by their cohabitation, then Vyasdev was born. So Vyasdev's actual name is Krishna, because his body color was darkish in complexion. His complexion was dark, so he is called Krishna. And because he was born in the middle of the river in a kind of an island, so he is called as Dvaipayana. And because then he divided the Vedas, he was called as Veda Vyasa. So Vyasa means one who divides. So Krishna Dvaipayana Veda Vyasa, that was his name. So he was born. And Parashar Rishi said, or he gave a benediction to Satyavati, that although we have associated, now child has been born, but still you will retain your virginity and it will not have any impact on you. And he also gave her a benediction that your name, that this smell that comes from your body, Matsyagandha, will completely go off, and then very nice fragrance will start emanating from your body. And your name from now on will not be Matsyagandha, but your name will be Gandhavati or Yojana Gandha. Yojana Gandha means one whose bodily fragrance spreads for 1 yojana, which means around 8 miles. So from around 8 miles, one will be able to smell her bodily fragrance. So that was the benediction that Parashar gave. And this fragrance is what Maharaj Shantanu gets attracted to. Okay, so when he meets her, then he wants to. So he understands that just by looking at her, Maharaj Shantanu, by his piety, he is able to understand that this is not an ordinary fisherman's daughter, because that will not be a proper marriage for him. Because a king, he may get attracted to any woman, but then there's propriety also that has to be followed. You cannot just get married to any woman. So he could understand that this is actually a daughter of a Kshatriya. And she was a biological daughter of Uparichara Vasu. So he could understand that, and but then he also understood, he approached Satyavati. So Satyavati said, I am under the shelter of my father, the king of fishermen, so you'll have to ask him. So Maharaj Shantanu goes there, he asks him, and he says that this marriage is perfect marriage. Satyavati cannot get a better husband than you, but then there is one problem. So Maharaj Shantanu asks, what's the problem? You please tell me what's the problem and I'll try to solve it. So he says that the son who will be born to Satyavati by the combination of you and Satyavati will have an enemy who is already existing. So Maharaj Shantanu asks, who is that enemy? So he says, your son is the enemy, because when Satyavati and your son is born, he will be reduced to only a slave, or be only a servant throughout his entire life to your most glorious son Devrat. That is how it will be. And then when Devrat will get married, he will have children. Then his sons will keep continuing, and the lineage from you and Satyavati will always be servants to the kings of Hastinapur, which I don't want. So you have to give me a promise. You have to give me a promise to me that the son who is born from you and Satyavati should be the next king. So although Maharaj Shantanu was completely mesmerized by Satyavati, he could not go against the well wishes, or he could not go against the rightful possession, or I don't want to say not rightful possession, but the right of Bhishmadeva, so to speak, right of Devrat. It's Devrat's right. He's the most qualified person. Devrat is the most qualified person to be the next king, and he could not go against him. So he said, no, I will not go against that. And then he came back. But then Devrat could see that Maharaj Shantanu was actually not very happy. He was morose and so on. So he directly asked his father, my dear father, I have not seen you like this, but now I am seeing that you are so morose all the time. So Maharaj Shantanu says, he did not say the entire detail directly. He said, see, I am worried because you are a very chivalrous son. I am very happy, I am very proud that I have a son like you, and you are a very chivalrous son, and you are always engaged in warfare and so on. So I am worried that if something happens to you, then our lineage will not continue. There will not be any next king in line. But then at the same time, I do not want to get married to anybody also, so that your rightful share is then snatched away from you. So all these thoughts are actually disturbing me. But Devrat was very intelligent. He understood something else is there. So he went to his ministers, the ministers of Maharaj Shantanu, and he asked what exactly has happened. And they told him everything. So Devrat took all those ministers, and then he went along with many old Brahmanas also to the house of Satyavati, where her father was there. And then he said, so this is what it is. So therefore I myself, I am saying, I am taking a vow that I will not sit on the throne. All the kings from now on will be the children of my father Shantanu and Satyavati only. So you will not have to worry anything about that. But the fisherman was still not satisfied, and he said, fine, I have no doubt on you taking this vow. I have no doubt that you will follow it. But then what about your son? What about your son? Now your son will be there, and he might usurp the kingdom from the children of Satyavati. So still this marriage cannot happen. So that time not Bhishma yet, Devrat actually gets a bit agitated, and then he takes this vow. He takes his vow that from this moment onwards, I will never think about women. I will not take any, I will not get married. I will not produce children. And this entire life, I will dedicate to all the kings who are born in the line of Maharaj Shantanu and Satyavati. And that will be my vow. And I will follow the vow of Brahmacharya throughout my entire life. Now when he said that, then everybody's hair stood on end, because following the vrat of Brahmacharya may be normal for rishis and others, but then for a Kshatriya it is the most difficult thing, because when he's living in a palace, he'll always be surrounded by so many women. Right? Palace means there'll be so many maid servants, there'll be so many women around, and when he's saying that he's going to dedicate his entire life to the kings, to the children of Satyavati and Shantanu and their lineage, then it basically means that he's not going to go to any forest, or he's not going to stay in Brahmacharya ashram or so on. He's going to stay in that palace itself. But at the same time, he's going to strongly follow the vow of Brahmacharya as well. So therefore, it's the most difficult thing for a Kshatriya to do, and to do that for his entire life is such a huge vrata. So that's why all the demigods, when they heard that this is what Devrat is going to do, they started shouting, Bhishma, Bhishma. Bhishma is one who's terrible, who has taken a very terrible vow to maintain, to be a brahmachari for this entire life, and that too staying in the palace itself. So when they say Bhishma, 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 and that way Devrat's name from that time onwards became Bhishma. And flowers were showered from the sky and so on. So after this, then the fisherman, the king of fishermen, he became very happy. And then Devrat Bhishma, then he took Satyavati and then he came back to Hastinapur. And Maharaj Shantanu, when he heard of what Bhishma has done, then he became very happy, very pleased. At the same time, he was also sad for his son, but at the same time, the dedication that he saw, the nishtha that he saw for himself, he was very, very astonished by that. He was amazed by that. And because Shantanu has performed such tapasya in all this 36 and all, he has his pious credit. He has this credit, or merit. The punya karma was there with him. So he actually employed that, and then he gave a benediction to Bhishma, saying that because you have done so much for me, therefore I give you a benediction that you will have this boon of ichha mrityu. Means death will come to you only when you desire. So he did not say that you will not die. He said death will happen, but then only when you allow it to happen. So only when you want to die, then only you will die. Otherwise, you will not die. So that Maharaj Shantanu had acquired that qualification. So he was able to benedict Bhishma like this. So this is how the story goes. And after that, Shantanu and Satyavati, they got married. And then they had 2 children. One was Chitrangada and then Vichitravirya. Chitrangada was the elder son and Vichitravirya was the younger son. And after these 2 children were born, then Maharaj Shantanu, he left this world. He passed away. So the responsibility of bringing up these 2 children, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya, fell on Bhishma. So he did that. He did those duties also. And Chitrangada was, although he was not fully ready to be the king, but then he was installed as the king because Bhishma cannot become king. Shantanu has already passed away. So someone should be there as the king. So Chitrangada was installed as the king and Bhishma guided him throughout his entire life. So there was also one Gandharva whose name was Chitrangada. And this Chitrangada Gandharva and this Shantanu's son Chitrangada became very popular because of his chivalry, because of the way he was guided by Bhishma, because of his knowledge and everything that he has learnt from Bhishma. He became very, very popular. And there was a Gandharva named Chitrangada who did not like that. So then he challenged this Chitrangada to fight with him because it's the same namesake. Whenever people speak about Chitrangada, they're actually speaking about the king of Hastinapur. They're not speaking about this Gandharva at all. So he got irritated with that. So he wanted to fight and then settle the matter once for all. So he fought Chitrangada, and although this other Chitrangada, the Gandharva, was superior in so many aspects, but this the king Chitrangada, he fought with the Gandharva for 3 years. So he was also very strong. So he fought for 3 years, but ultimately he had to succumb. So so Chitrangada, the son of Shantanu, he died, and the Gandharva went his own way. So Bhishma, now Vichitravirya was very small, so he should be the next king. Bhishma cannot become the king. So Vichitravirya again was installed in his young age itself. When he was still not a youth, he was again installed when he was a child as the king. And then Bhishma, he trained him from the start. So he trained Chitrangada, then he also had to train Vichitravirya also. So he trained Vichitravirya, and Vichitravirya also had the same potency, opulence, power and so on that Chitrangada had. So once he had attained the age of marriage, youthful age, then Bhishma decided that now we should get him married so that the progeny can be made and this dynasty can continue and this lineage of Chandravamsha continues. So to do that, now Bhishma by this time is very old. So he already had his beard, his hair, everything has become white by this time. Although technically speaking, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya, they are his brothers, but then Bhishma has stayed in this world for such a long time that his beard, his hair, everything has grown white by this time, and Vichitravirya is only attained the age of youth. So Vichitravirya has to be married. So in consultation with Satyavati, then Bhishma hears that the king of Kashi is doing Swayamvara for his 3 daughters, Amba, Ambika and Ambalika. So so Bhishma then he takes his chariot, goes to this Kashiraj Swayamvar, and when he enters there, then all the princes and all the kings who are already present in the Swayamvar, they actually make fun of Bhishma, saying, see, now this person, he did not get married, when he was young. Now he has become so old, and now he has come here to do Swayamvar of these three princes. So Bhishma said, this is not Swayamvar for me. I'm doing it for Vichitravirya. This is according to dharmic scriptures. This is according to Dharma. This is proper. The elder brother can do this Swayamvara for his younger brother also, and I've already declared it. So therefore it is not improper. And I challenge anyone to come and fight with me. If you think I'm old, then I'll show you how old I am. You come and fight with me, and then we will see. So then he took all these three princes, put them in his chariot and started going. And all these princes who were young with energy and vigor, they started following Bhishma, and they fought with him, and obviously everybody got defeated. And then they came back. And Shalva was also there along with that. So he also got defeated from Bhishma. And then Bhishma brought all these three girls back. And then the marriage for Vichitravirya was decided. But one problem was this Amba, she actually did not want to get married to Vichitravirya. She already was in love with Shalva. And she expressed that to Bhishma, saying, I was planning to choose Shalva in my Swayamvar, but then you came with your mighty power. I could not resist you. This is your prowess, so I also came along, but then I don't have any interest. I've already given my heart to Shalva. So you please tell me what should happen according to Dharma now. So Bhishma said, see, if you have already given your heart to somebody else, you cannot be married to Vichitravirya only because your Swayamvar has happened. So therefore, you are free to go to Shalva. And then he asked her to leave. So she left. And there is another story, this parallel story of Shikhandi and so on that happens. So Ambika and Ambalika are then married to Vichitravirya. But Vichitravirya was a very lustful person, so to speak. The lust was very heavy. It was all very strong on him. So he used to enjoy with his wife. He could not produce any children, but because of too much lustful activity, he got diseases, and then he also passed away. So he also died. So again, Satyavati is there, Ambika, Ambalika is there, but no male issue. No one to produce children from Ambika and Ambalika. So Satyavati approaches Bhishma and she says, see, now the situation is an emergency situation. At this time, you should not be thinking about your vows and vrata that you have taken. Now you should get married to Ambika and Ambalika. This is according to Dharma, and then you should produce children from them. So Bhishma says, no, this is not proper. This is not proper. I will never break my vow, even if so many other things happen. The entire creation can go upside down, but my vow, which I have taken, I will never break. So then Bhishma tells a story to Satyavati in which he indicates that in the previous times also, when the husband has passed away, then the women have been impregnated by other rishis. So in the same way, we can also have this two princes, Ambika and Ambalika, impregnated by rishi, and that way the lineage can continue. Actually, this happened when Parshuram, he killed all the Kshatriyas 21 times. There was no progeny. Where will the other Kshatriyas come from? So these women, so the Brahmanas who were there, they actually created progeny. They created the next line of Kshatriyas from these Kshatranis, from the Kshatriya women. So this has already happened before. So Bhishma says that this is proper. So we can ask a Brahmana to impregnate this woman and the lineage can continue like this way. So Satyavati, then she reveals that Vyasdev is actually her son and he can come. So Vyasdev, before leaving Satyavati, after he was born, then it was not like normal childbirth. Then he grew through ages, and when he attained 16 years, then only went and so on. As soon as Vyasdev was born, then that time itself, within a day, he grew up. And then he left to perform tapasya, and he told Satyavati that whenever you think of me, you meditate on me, I'll appear in front of you. So Satyavati revealed this to Bhishma, and then Bhishma says, this is very good news. So please ask the great Rishi Vyasdev to come and impregnate these two princesses. So Satyavati meditates on Vyasdev. Vyasdev comes, and then Vyasdev impregnates Ambika, then Ambalika, and then one maid servant of Ambika. So there's a story for that also. That Ambika was actually, when she saw Vyasdev, and Vyasdev was doing tapasya in Himalayan mountain. So he was not very clean in that sense. His beard was long, he had very different appearance, and because of heavy tapasya and all, his skin was not very soft and so on. And when Ambika saw him for the first time, she became very afraid and she closed her eyes. So when through this process of niyoga, And Vyasadeva impregnated Ambika, and then he told Satyavati, my dear mother, that because she closed her eyes, her son would be born blind. Then Satyavati says, what's the point of a blind son? How will he rule the kingdom? So you please impregnate Ambalika. So when Vyasadeva comes in front of Ambalika, then Ambalika becomes very pale, or her color completely changes. She becomes disfigured. So Vyasadeva says the son will be extremely chivalrous, he'll be very powerful and all, but he'll be of pale complexion. So Satyavati says, see, the tejas of the king should be visible on the child's face. So one who has a pale face, who looks very dull, although he may be chivalrous, he has all these qualities and all, if he looks very dull, it will not be good for the emperor of the entire world. So you please impregnate Ambika again. So Vyasadeva says, see, niyoga can happen only 3 times. This is actually rule of Dharma Shastra. So when something like this happens, a person can impregnate the wife of another person only 3 times. So this is applicable only till Dwapar Yuga. In Kali Yuga, this is rejected by all the, in Manu Samhita and in Abhastamba, everybody rejects this process of niyoga. This is not applicable in Kali Yuga, but even till Dwapar Yuga also, because nobody should misuse this process of niyoga. So Vyasadeva says this is the last time. Only one can do only this process only 3 times. It's the last time I'll go. Satyavati agrees. And Ambika, when she hears again that Vyasadeva is only going to come, what she does, she dresses her maid servant like herself, and then she sends her maid servant. So when the maid servant sees Vyasadeva, then she's not at all afraid. She's very, she actually expresses happiness, and she does nice service to Vyasadeva. And when Vyasadeva understands that this is not Ambika anymore, this is her maid servant, but because this is how Providence is going to be, then he unites with her, and then Vidura was born. So Dhritarashtra was blind from the start, then Pandu was born pale in complexion, and then Vidura was born, who was like the most brilliant personality, we can say, of all the 3 in terms of knowledge, in terms of devotion and so on, because the maid servant was very courteous to Vyasadeva. So this happens, and then and then after this, then again Dhritarashtra, Pandu and Vidura, all of them were trained by Bhishma only. It's like Bhishma did not take any prominent role, but the entire training process of all these kings after Shantanu, Chitrangada, Vichitravirya, then Dhritarashtra, Pandu, then Vidura obviously could not become, he's not a Kshatriya because he was born of a servant. So all of them were trained by Bhishma. And after that, the marriage between Dhritarashtra and Gandhari was also set by Bhishma. The marriage between Pandu and Kunti, Pandu and Madri, that was also set by Bhishma. And Vidura's marriage was also set by Bhishma only. So this entire, there are years, literally there are hundreds of, 100 years in between, because Bhishma was actually doing everything. He was administrating the kingdom, he was taking care of the royal lineage, and he was doing all that. And then at the same time, he never took any prominent position. Although if he had taken a prominent position after the death of Vichitravirya, nobody could have questioned him. But then it was his vow, his Satya Sankalpa. We say, devotees are Satya Sankalpa. So he was like that. So he did not take any position at all, but he kept on serving the way he had taken a vow in front of the fisherman. He said, I will serve all the children of the lineage that comes from Shantanu and Satyavati. I'll serve them like a menial servant, and that is how Bhishma followed. So this is Nishtha, this is firmly fixed up in one's determination. So we can learn how, just like in Mahabharat's point of view, in a mundane sense, we can understand that this is how he did. But then from devotional point of view, we can see, if one has such dedication, when he gets initiated, he takes shelter of his spiritual master. And then he is initiated by him, and then he takes a sankalpa of chanting 60 rounds, performing pure devotional service, then following the regulative principles and so on. That nishtha or that determination that Bhishma showed is actually an inspiration for us to follow the same way in our dedication to our Guru also. But then we will also see that, so this goes on. So then Dhritarashtra with Gandhari, he has 100 children, Pandu has 5 children, and so on. But at the same time, because in this way, Amba, when she went back to Shalva, then Shalva said, no, you have already been kidnapped. It is against my integrity, it's against my honor if I accept something who have been rejected by another Kshatriya. So therefore, I will not accept you as my wife. So Amba then goes to different people, and then she finally approaches Parshuram, who was a spiritual master, or not spiritual master, but Shastra Guru of Bhishma. And Parshuram then asks Bhishma to accept Amba as his wife. But Bhishma says, no, I will not do that. And his famous verse he quotes, Guru Rapya Viliptasya Karya Karya Majanataha. So Guru, who actually does not know what is right and what is wrong, then he should be rejected. Parityago vidhiyate. He says, so therefore, I must reject you as my Guru because you do not know what is right and what is wrong. You're thinking only based on the sentimentality. You're only seeing that girl crying, and because of that, he wants to basically break the vow of a disciple. You're not dealing with things properly. So then there's a fight that happens between Bhishma and Parshuram, and Bhishma actually defeats Parshuram. That's the same way that Ramachandra defeated Parshuram, Bhishma also defeats Parshuram. And then Amba had no other resort to go. So then she performs tapasya to Lord Shiva so that she can become the instrument of Bhishma's death. So she performs tapasya, she gives up that body. In next life also, again she is born as a woman, and that entire life she performs tapasya again, and she gives her body. And then after that, in the third life, she actually takes birth as Shikhandi, or rather Shikhandini. It's a very complicated thing. So she takes birth as a woman, but Drupad, he always wanted a son. So what he does, he starts dressing this girl as a boy. And then he's married also to another girl. And then they find out that, okay, he is not actually a boy, he's actually a girl. And then story goes like that. And these are all different side stories in Mahabharata that comes. But finally what happens is that then this girl, she actually attains manhood. She actually attains manhood because from Yaksha, he gives benediction to her that she will attain manhood after this particular time. And this was not reversible anymore because Lord Shiva, he forbids this Yaksha that because you have given your manhood to Shikhandi, so now this manhood should continue and you cannot reverse it. So there's a story that comes. It's a detailed story. We'll not get into that. So Shikhandi was Shikhandi was actually Amba before 2 lives. So then he becomes the reason for Bhishma's death, so to speak. So this is happening on the sidelines. And we'll see that all these years, Bhishma has actually has performed his dharma and the way he has trained. So he's not only training these children. So he's actually become the guru in all sense of the term. He is their dharmic guru because he taught Chitrangada, Vichitravirya, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, Vidra, all about dharma. So all kinds of education that these 5 children learned, they all learned from Bhishma only. He also taught them the use of weapons. So each and everything that these children learned was all due to Bhishmadeva only. So we can see that his entire life has been dedicating to kind of teaching. So he's become the guru for everybody. And that one who has produced, who can produce such great personalities like Chitrangada, Vichitravirya, although we discuss about them in a passing manner, but they were actually ruling the entire world. So for one to rule the entire world, he should have that much amount of knowledge, culture, and so many different aspects are required. And Bhishma alone was able to train 5 of them on their own. So that basically proves why he is the one who actually knows what actual dharma is. So all these things happened, but then at one point we also see that Bhishma actually becomes bewildered, and then he does not speak about what proper dharma is. So this happened during this gambling match between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, when Yudhishthir, he stakes first Sahadev, then Nakul, then Arjun, then Bhim, and then he stakes himself and loses himself. And after that, then he puts on stake, on wager, he puts Draupadi also, and Draupadi is also lost. So when all these things happened, then Draupadi was dragged into the assembly hall by Dushasan. So she puts forth this question, that if Yudhishthir has already lost himself, he is already a slave, he does not possess me anymore. So therefore, because a slave does not have any possession, how can he think that his wife is his possession and put me on stake? If Yudhishthir has lost himself, he cannot put me separately on the stake like this. So this is the question. Or else, you should tell me if Yudhishthir has already not put himself on stake and then he put me on stake. Before that, then it's a different story. So please tell me what is proper dharma. So that time Vikarna, who is the brother of Duryodhan, he says that whatever Dushasana is doing, whatever the Kaurava is doing is totally nonsense. Draupadi is not won in that way because Yudhishthira had already lost himself. So when he has already lost himself, then he does not have the authority to put anybody else on stake. He actually cannot continue playing at all because he has already lost himself. That's the end of the gambling match. That's the end of the gambling match. How can he put somebody else on stake when he has lost himself? And when he has lost himself, he does not have any position at all. So that's how it should be interpreted. That's how dharma works. So Vikarna said that, Vidura also said that, but none of the elders who actually matter, Kripacharya or Dronacharya or Bhishma, they should speak, but they are not speaking up. And Dhritarashtra was completely bewildered. So when Draupadi was put on stake, Dhritarashtra was actually inquiring whether Draupadi has been won or not. So he has got completely deranged in that way. So Dhritarashtra was totally, this is how gambling works, right? When gambling is there, then everybody becomes crazy, everybody becomes mad. They lose the sense of dharma. So Bhishma also, it looks like he was not following, or he could not understand what actual proper dharma is, because the response that he gave to Draupadi is that, see, in one way, if we see, Yudhishthira has already lost himself, but so that way he cannot put you on stake. So therefore, you should not be won. But at the same time, Yudhishthira is also your husband, and the wife is always the property of husband. So therefore, even if he has lost himself, it does not mean that the marriage that happened between you and Yudhishthira, that becomes void. So therefore, you are always under the shelter of Yudhishthira, and if he wants to stake you, he can stake you also. So I am not able to decide this thing. Dharma is very difficult to understand. It's all very confidential and all. So I am not able to decide about this. So it is explained, okay, how to understand this. Bhishma, who has actually trained all these 5 children, who is such a great, is called as Mahajana also. Bhagavatam itself claims as Mahajana. And here, when we read or when we study, when we hear Mahabharata, we can understand what is happening is wrong. What is happening is actually not proper. A woman cannot be molested like this. But then how come that Bhishma, who is such a great Mahajana, he is not able to understand that? So that question always comes up in the mind. So it is explained that actually, this bewilderment of Bhishma is similar to the bewilderment of Arjuna for hearing this Bhagavad Gita. So Arjuna, he was eternal associate of the Lord, and it's no way possible that he can get bewildered. But because Krishna wanted to speak Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, therefore Arjuna was put in a state of bewilderment. So similarly, Bhishma also was put in a state of bewilderment so that further pastimes can take place. One is, one can see how Draupadi is so dedicated and so devoted to Krishna, because when there is no shelter, then Draupadi takes shelter of Krishna, and Krishna provides her with unlimited sari, and not only normal sari but different colors. In Mahabharata is mentioned. So Draupadi, she was actually in her contamination state, and she was wearing only one cloth, a very normal cloth. But then Krishna, when she dedicated herself, when she surrendered herself onto Krishna, that nobody else is able to save me, so oh Govinda, please save me, then Krishna not only gave her a cloth, but she gave different colorful saris. It's mentioned in Mahabharata. So many different saris came, and Dushasan, he kept on pulling those saris, but there was a mountain of sari next to him, almost more taller than Dushasan, but still these different saris came. So it is said that Bhishma actually did not interfere in between, because Draupadi's glory as the greatest devotee of Krishna had to be put forth. So that manifestation should be there, that one who dedicates, wants to surrender on to Krishna, Krishna comes and saves them. So that pastime had to happen, because had Bhishma interfered in between, and then he had this authority, although Dhritarashtra was the king, but still Bhishma could have scolded Dhritarashtra, saying, you are a murkha, you are doing all these kinds of nonsense, stop it right now. And Dhritarashtra, out of fear of Bhishma and for his respect, could have stopped that also. That may have happened hypothetically, but still that did not happen, because this dedication of Draupadi, the glory of Draupadi as the pure devotee of the Lord has to come forth. So the Lord's Leela is like that. And then there are so many other things also that happened in due course when the Pandavas were sent to the forest for 12 years. Then Bhishma, he was with the Hastinapur king. It looked as if he always supported Dhritarashtra, although he expressed his dissatisfaction against Dhritarashtra, but if he wanted, he could have done something. That is how it looks, but then he did not. And when it came to the battle of Kurukshetra also, then also Bhishma took the side of Kauravas. He did not take the side of Pandavas. Now, why is that? Could he not understand that Pandavas are the devotees of the Lord? Could he not understand that rather than taking side of the adharmic people, doesn't matter whether they have fed you, they have maintained you, and so on. Actually, what feeding and maintaining you? Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura were actually brought up by Bhishma only. So it's not these people who are maintaining Bhishma. So normally it is said that Bhishma had this, he was thinking that he, Dronacharya, Kripa, they are obligated to work or to fight for the Kauravas, although they do not want to because they are under the curse, they are under the debt of the food and the facilities that they got under the Kauravas and so on. That may be explained as a reason in Mahabharata also. But from devotional point of view, if we see, Bhishma actually, he took the side of Kauravas so that he can experience this Virya Rasa with Krishna. And this is explained actually in the 9th chapter of the first canto. If you see his prayers are there from, I think, 18th verse to 24. But if you see the 34th verse here, I'll just read this. So there are 3-4 verses continuously where Bhishmadeva is actually expressing that form of the Lord which he saw in front of him when he was fighting with Arjuna. So it may seem very far-fetched that for all these years he was actually on the side of Adharma only to see this or what. But then the way it works is, Mahabharata is a very complicated thing. So there are several aspects of different characters which we have to analyze and understand in that way. But from pure Bhagavatam point of view, we can understand that the most important thing that actually Bhishmadev relished was that Virya Rasa with Krishna. And that is possible only when he is on the side of the Kauravas. If he is on the side of Pandavas, then he will be fighting maybe along with Arjuna and Krishna. But he will not be able to experience how Krishna dedicates himself to protect his devotee. But here Bhishma could directly understand that, and he could have a reciprocation with the Lord. And also, if we see, Bhishma's vow was also there that he will always protect or he will always support the kings of Hastinapur. And at this point of time, Dhritarashtra was the king. So all these different things, they got into places in such a way that Bhishma did not break his vow of being, although Adharma was on this side, and actually speaking, according to Dharma, he should have come to the Pandavas side. But at the same time, he has also taken this sankalpa to always be with the Hastinapur kings. So that way he maintained that, and that also enabled him, although his character may be questioned as to why he did not side with the Pandavas, but still he was able to fulfill his vow, his Satya Sankalpa, and at the same time he was also able to relish that rasa with Krishna. So both these things happened in that way. So if you see, there are 3-4 verses which actually Bhishmadev speaks to the Lord. So this is after he has given instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthir. So this entire Shanti Parva is over. He has also spoken about Vishnu Sahasranam. And actually what happened was, Maharaj Yudhishthir was not very satisfied with all this killing. It was a very horrible and ghastly sight. So he expressed his dissatisfaction that I don't want to become king at all. If I have to become king after killing all the 64 crore people, and then Bhishmadev is also lying on the battlefield itself in a bed of arrows, and wherever you see, you have cut head, you have cut hands, legs, the body is mangled everywhere, not only of human beings, of horses, of elephants, and so on. So all these things were there, and there were jackals, there were dogs all around, vultures were there were flies roaming around on all these different dead bodies, and there were crores of dead bodies like this. So this is a very ghastly scene for Maharaj Yudhishthir, and he says, if on cost of this, I have to become a king and enjoy being an emperor, I don't want to become a king. So then Krishna was not able to pacify him, because of course Krishna can pacify, but he expressed himself as if he's not able to pacify, so that the glories of Bhishmadev can be put forth. And then Vyasdev also, he tried to pacify. Then also Maharaj Yudhishthira was not convinced. So they finally went to Bhishmadev, and then Bhishma spoke the Shanti Parva and established Yudhishthira Maharaj in proper dharma. Varnashrama dharma is explained entirely in this Shanti Parva. And after this, then Maharaj Yudhishthira asks, see, you have spoken about all this dharma that one's supposed to follow with this material realm, but if one wants to go back to the spiritual world, what he should do? Then Bhishmadev speaks about the glories of the holy name, and then he speaks about Vishnu Sahasranam. And after that, Now Vishnu Sahasranam is over, and then he finally understands that the sun has passed on to the northern hemisphere. That's Uttarayana has started. And it's not that as soon as Uttarayana starts, Bhishma Dev leaves. It's actually after 8 days. So this Bhishma Ashtami. So after 7 days, only Bhishma decides to leave in Uttarayana. And when he's about to leave and is meditating on the Lord, then he explains his internal mood. And he says, no, on the battlefield, this is Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 34. So this is Bhishma Dev speaking. He says, on the battlefield where Sri Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses. And because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go on to Sri Krishna. So his meditation is itself of the Lord in the battlefield as a charioteer of Arjuna. Then he says, in obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Sri Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana. And while there, he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna. Then he says, when Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. So Bhishma was aware that Bhagavad Gita is being spoken to him, and all the messages of Bhagavad Gita he also heard. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Then he says, fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. So these are his internal mood. Now, all these 4 verses that we saw is basically talking about the Lord in his battlefield avatar. May he, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield, he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. So he was not feeling sad that Krishna has been hurt. He actually was relishing that. The Lord cannot be hurt, of course. Then there is the 6th verse. He says, at the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. So 6 verses, he is expressing his internal mood. And then the next verse, he speaks to please the Lord. So he says, let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadham, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the Rasa dance. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that he says the relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhishma Dev, but the relation of the gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. And then he also says that the gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the last stage of his life. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified, and therefore Bhishma Dev has not only glorified the acts of Arjuna, his immediate object of attraction, but has also remembered the gopis who were endowed with unrivaled opportunities for rendering loving service to the Lord. So to please the Lord, because when gopis are in vogue, then the Lord's heart becomes very softened. So to do that, then so that the Krishna can have mercy on Bhishma Dev, he also invoked this. And then finally he says, at the Rajsya Yajna, sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders. And in that great assembly, Lord Shri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. So there also, in the Asya Yajna also, Bhishmadev was very clear as to the purpose, as to why Maharaj Yudhishthira was performing the sacrifice, so that Krishna can be established as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in all these different ways, he actually, by his activities, by the way he trained the dynasty of Shantanu, by the way he fought with different enemies, and in the battle of Kurukshetra also, he is the only commander in chief who fought for 11 days from the Kauravas side. Rest all, the Drona fought only, was a commander in chief only for 4 days, and then Karna was there the 1 day, and then Shalya was there 1 day, and that's it. The war got over. So Bhishma, but he fought for 11 days. So in terms of fighting, he's showing that kind of prowess. In terms of his knowledge, the way he spoke, the entire Shanti Parva, in terms of his devotion, the way Vishnu Sahasranam, he spoke Vishnu Sahasranam, and the way he prayed to the Lord in all these different aspects, from mundane dharma, right from the lowest level to the topmost pure devotional service, Bhishma was an authority. Because he proved that throughout his entire life by teaching different people in different ways. He taught Maharaj Yudhishthira, he taught all the different children also. So that way he is a very glorious personality, and this is one of the reasons. This is the reason why he is called as a Mahajana, who knew everything in and out about dharma, and wherever there is a situation where it seems as if he is not following dharma, that also was for an ultimate reason, so that the Lord can be glorified and he can exchange this devotional rasa with Krishna. So we can meditate on him, and the purports of this 9th chapter is very good. We did not have time to study all that, so we can go through it today, being Bhishma Ashtami. So I'll stop here. Yeah, I'll stop here. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.